Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of Carl Jung's psychological theories. We're going to unpack a deeply misunderstood social dynamic to figure out exactly why simply pointing out the truth in a dysfunctional room so often makes you the villain. If you've ever felt like your mere existence, or just your basic honesty, somehow triggered an entire group of people, well, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get right into it.
Let's kick things off with a highly relatable scenario, and let me know if this hits a little too close to home. Picture this. You walk into a space, maybe it's a family holiday gathering, or maybe a team meeting at work. You gently name the totally obvious dysfunction in the room, and suddenly the entire group turns against you. I want you to pause and look back at your own history for a second. Think about the last time you pointed out an undeniable toxic truth. Did the group stop and reflect on their behavior? Or did they instantly organize against you as if you were the toxic one?
That right there is what we call the punishment of clarity. It is the visceral, confusing experience of stepping right into an invisible war.
And the cycle plays out incredibly predictably, almost like a script, doesn't it? It starts when you instantly sense the dysfunction in a room. You see the manipulation that literally everyone else is completely ignoring, and you feel that thick, unspoken resentment just simmering right beneath their polite smiles. For a while, you just quietly observe this shared lie, but eventually, driven by a genuine desire for authenticity, you gently name the truth. And what happens? Instead of relief or gratitude, the group turns on you with terrifying speed. Boom! Instantly you're labeled as difficult, dramatic, or negative. You're accused of creating a problem where supposedly none existed.
But here is the profound paradigm shift. Carl Jung, who spent decades studying the deepest mechanics of the human mind, found that you aren't broken, and you definitely aren't paranoid. The wild part? This fierce backlash happens precisely because your perception of the dysfunction is flawlessly accurate. You're experiencing what Jung called the scapegoat phenomenon.
To really grasp what's happening here, we have to look at the mirror effect and understand why human groups actually rely on a sort of managed blindness just to function.
The crucial mechanism at play is what Jung called participation mystique. Basically, groups rely heavily on this state of psychological fusion. Think of it as a subconscious pact of managed blindness. Every family, every workplace, they operate on these shared unconscious agreements. Everyone implicitly agrees not to acknowledge the toxic leader or name the underlying rot. They are entirely merged with the group, and they will only allow themselves to see what the collective agrees is safe to see.
So here's the exact play-by-play of what happens when you step into that kind of environment. First, the group establishes and relies on a shared illusion for their social cohesion. Second, you, the truth teller, arrive and bring accurate clarity. You see reality for what it is, which shatters their unconscious agreement. Third, the group attacks the mirror. When you bring authenticity into a system that is literally built on emotional avoidance, you threaten their cohesion. You force their unconscious minds to either integrate the painful truth or attack you. And unfortunately, 99% of the time, they're going to attack the mirror.
This brings us to a massively powerful defense mechanism, shadow projection. Because integrating the truth is painful and demands deep self-reflection, the group naturally fights it. Instead, they resort to shadow projection. They project all their own unacknowledged sins, their own darkness, and their own dysfunction right onto you, making you the scapegoat. You literally become the repository for the exact things they refuse to consciously face about themselves.
Now, what is deeply disorienting about this whole shebang is that the group isn't pretending to be mad at you. They genuinely believe your presence ruined the atmosphere. They'll say the energy in the room shifted the moment you arrived. And honestly, they're right, it did. But not because you brought toxicity. It changed because you brought clarity into a space built entirely on its absence. To a group organized around a shared illusion, your truth is always going to be experienced as an intrusion.
It really highlights the absolute irony of modern culture, doesn't it? Society is obsessed with this good vibes only aesthetic. People love the idea of speaking your truth, right? We print it on coffee mugs and t-shirts. But the reality of honesty is a totally different story. The exact second your truth inconveniences their emotional avoidance, you are suddenly accused of killing the vibe and starting drama. Society loves the aesthetic of honesty, but it is absolutely terrified of the reality of it.
So, how do we handle this without losing our minds? We have to navigate the trap of compulsive honesty to protect our vital energy from these blind systems.
Jung's remedy to the scapegoat trap requires a total paradigm shift.
Highly perceptive people often feel this desperate, compulsive honesty, a burning need to name what they see, simply because holding on to the truth feels so incredibly heavy. But you have to move away from that compulsion. You need to shift instead to selective truth-telling. This is the disciplined practice of actively assessing whether the people in front of you actually have the psychological capacity to receive the truth before you give it to them.
As Jung famously warned, indiscriminate truth-telling is not wisdom, it is a disruption. Just because your perception is undeniably accurate, and just because you are completely right, doesn't mean you should share it. You have to read the room. Throwing truth at a system that is fundamentally incapable of hearing it isn't helping anyone. It's literally just setting yourself up to be the scapegoat once again.
To actually survive and thrive in these environments, you have to build an internal architecture. You have to become the conscious witness.
Jung called this building a psychological container. You must stop being the unconscious absorber. You know, the person who feels fully responsible for fixing the room, like jumping onto the tracks to try and physically stop a speeding train of dysfunction. Instead, you need to become the conscious witness. You learn to stand safely on the platform. You can still clearly see the manipulation and the train wreck happening right in front of you, but you simply observe it without absorbing it, and without feeling the desperate need to fix it.
This is the ultimate test of your psychological boundaries. I really want you to pause and look inward right now. Are you wasting your life force trying to force blind systems to see? Are you pouring your truth into environments that just drain you dry and then blame you for being empty? Or are you finally ready to embrace the untouchable, peaceful power of remaining silent when a system simply cannot handle your clarity?
You've got to remember this profound reality. What you saw in those rooms was incredibly real. Your lens is completely accurate. The anger and the backlash directed at you, that was never about your flaws, your tone, or your personality. It was entirely about a fragile system panicking, desperately attempting to protect its own unacknowledged shadow from the bright, glaring light of your perception.
So we end with this final, vital question to chew on. Will you keep exhausting yourself trying to fix rooms that simply do not want to be fixed? The world does not need more perceptive people who've been ground down into agreeable, manageable versions of themselves by groups that couldn't tolerate reality. Stop apologizing for the clarity of your vision. Build your psychological container, learn the true discipline of selective silence, and ask yourself, will you finally trust your own signal and just see the world exactly as it is? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I truly hope it brought you some much-needed clarity.